allow me to start by chanting. That is my profession. But of course, I will not scare you. It will take you just 1 minute. Ratanyunang Bhikkhuni nang kotami chinnamatu cha papita akathanam hi satha soting karotu no. This is the very first verse of the great piece, something that has been composed again in Chiang Mai 200 years ago. This particular verse talks about the existence of the ordained nun in the Buddha's time. And because she is my root, Mahā Gotami Therī, she was the very first Bhikkhuni, the very first fully ordained nun in Buddhism, ordained by the Buddha. She was the Buddha's aunt and stepmother. The fact that I'm standing here is representing her because she is my spiritual root. I'm talking about the root, and I'm bringing about the consciousness of empowering our potentiality by taking care of our root. My very first root, the fact that you are looking at the rare species. In Thailand, I am the first fully ordained Theravadin Bhikkhuni. So very rare species, but we are coming along because we are nurturing our root and we are thriving. In Chiang Mai, you have pockets of Bhikkhuni in Chiang Mai. And since my ordination for the last 10 years, now we have already 20 fully ordained nuns from Sri Lankan tradition. So why do I start with this chanting? I am getting in touch with my root. My mother was also fully ordained, but she was ordained in Taiwan. When I was ordained, something happened. This particular lady who came to me, as she bowed to me, she took so long, she just kept her head there. I didn't even know the person. So I waited until she raised her face up to realize that she was crying very deeply. She was crying. Something was wrong with her, she thought. She lost her mother a month ago, but somehow she could not come out of this grief. The grief was so strong in her. That year, I also lost my mother. So I could share with her heart to heart, how did I feel? How did I manage to handle the fact that my mother was gone? When my mother was gone, I felt so strengthened. Isn't that strange? I felt so strengthened because I am living my mother in me. You are doing the same because your mother has already given you so much of her in us. My technique is to be in touch with all the best quality that my mother was. And now I relive my mother in me. So why I am strengthening? Because it's me, myself, and also my mother, all the good qualities from my mother. Each one of us will realize ourselves as much as our parents. They have both good and bad qualities, right? Positive and negative energy. Forget about the negative energy. We are going to be selective. We are going to sift out only the positive energy. Shall we do that? Of course, we are going to do that. So when I cremated her, I cremated all the negative energies along with the fire that consumed her body. And now I am retaining all the good quality from my mother. So I am working doubly, myself and my mother. And that's how I feel so strengthened. In fact, I look very much like my mother. Sometimes, when I went to the marketplace, people look at me and they thought I was my mother. So they came out, oh, Venerable Grandma, you must be doing very good meditation. That's why you look so young. That happened often. So I feel even more strengthened and even more certain that yes, my mother is very much with me, still very much with me, and acting through me, sending out all the good energies that when she was alive, through me now. We are working together. We are working together. Imagine you are sitting here. I do not know your grandparents, but the fact that you are sitting here, of course, you are representing your grandparents, right? So we are connecting with this root. Then I have a story to tell you about the mud house. My brother John will be next, and he'll be talking about the mud house. And in Thailand, if you talk about the mud house, he is the real guru. So I will not touch much on the mud house, but the mud house is really my interest because I just get involved in it this year. So it's so immediate, I started the mud house in February for 38 days, all women working on this mud house. We come with an agreement that number one, we are learning together. Number two, we are not making mud house for something. We are making mud house for making it. The process is an end, so to say. So we learn, let us promise that we are coming together in order to build this mud house. And in this process of building mud house, we are actually looking inward. Looking inward. Let us experience, let us grow together spiritually. As much as physically, I become very strong, and all of us become very dark within 38 days, because we work 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and with the sun in Thailand, you can realize how we really become permanently dark. But that is beside the point. My job, this is the mud house, so beautiful. So you see how we do each step that we do. The job that they gave me, whenever mother, you are old, don't do anything too hard. So I was chopping the clay. So that the big chunk of clay, I chop it into small pieces so that we soak it in the water. Next morning we can add rice husk, then we add straw, step on it so that we could put it in the block so that we could make the mud brick. You see, so I really know about it. Huh? John, I really know about building the mud house. Now, one day in the evening when I was chopping this clay in my hand like this, suddenly I saw that in that clay, it was wood. Wood that has turned itself into clay. It looked like definitely a piece of wood. But when you feel it, it's clay. That moment, I really felt like this. I was clay. Can you imagine? Each one of us, we are part of that. Then I realized the connection of the teaching of the Buddha. He explained that each one of us, we are nothing but the coming together of the 4 elements. We have the 4 elements in the universe, and we borrowed those 4 elements in us, in our life. So now these 4 elements, it work together, well balanced. Must be well balanced, because if the 4 elements are not in well balance, what happens? You get too much fire element, of course, then you have fever, right? If you have diarrhea, you have too much of water element. And then, when someone died, the very first thing you said, he breathed his last. The air element is gone. So in Buddhism, we talk about this elements, coming together of the elements. Now I found yet another root of my existence. So we are greatly connected within this. And as we go along, we realize that, of course, we have borrowed these 4 elements in our existence. So it is our responsibility together to maintain these 4 elements within us and maintain the balance of the 4 elements with the outside world, with the 4 elements of the universe. In this, bring about the great practice of getting in touch with my root. And as I'm getting in touch with my root, you are also getting in touch with your root. And you realize that we become one in this returning to our spiritual root, to our elementary root, because as I breathe in, nurturing myself with this good feeling, I breathe out, I am sharing with you loving kindness and compassion. Do you feel it? Of course you feel it, because you have loving kindness and compassion within you. You cannot feel it if you do not have. So you see the connection. Through this very simple air element, we can already be drawn so that we become one. So when you talk about philosophy, Buddhist philosophy in depth, they always talk about this breathing in, breathing out. They don't usually tell you that by breathing in and breathing out, we can also be connected. And by being connected, I return to my root, nurturing my root. You are returning to your root, nurturing your root, but your root and my root is these 4 elements. So that is how we are connecting. And using the backup from our parentage DNA that we have already cremated the negative energy. We preserve only the positive energy within us. So in this practice, that you don't need to set up budget. You don't have to ask the government for any budget. We can actually create this harmonious context, harmonious setting, so that each one of us will be nurturing each other. In my community, I tell my community that in the morning when you wake up, first of all, you must be thankful. Then they said, Venerable Mother, why should we be thankful? Thankful for what? I said, you realize that you have to be thankful that we are alive. We tend to take it for granted. We tend to take it for granted that you're going to get up and be normal and just live normal life forever and ever. That is not true, right? That is not true. So that's why His Holiness Dalai Lama, one time he asked question, whether next life and tomorrow, which one will come first? We would say, oh, tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow will come first. Are you sure? Really? You have that 1% of being uncertain. That 1% of being uncertain, that's why we have to come back to our root. Getting back to our root, nurture our root, and by this nurturing of our root, then we can somehow nurture, realizing our potentiality and empower this potentiality. We don't know how long we're going to live, right? We really don't know. I am one of the most oldest one in my monastery, and we have the younger ones. I always question them, which one, are you going first or me? I am going first. And they say, oh, they're pointing to me. Of course, that's not true. We know that that is not true. And because we know that it is not true, therefore, we have to keep in touch with our root and behave as though today is our last day. Can you imagine that? Behave as though today is your last day. You know, sometimes I have stories of people who get angry with someone and they stop talking for 10 years. After 10 years, they already forgot what was the reason why they had so much anger and so much fight between each other. And now they have already forgot the reason, yet they don't talk to each other. There was one particular case of a lady who came, she was crying for a long time because she was in a very bad relationship with her husband, and both of them did not talk for a month. And then the husband died. She was so much in tears because she said, had I known it, I would have done this, I would have done that. You know, so imagine that today is our last day. Let us heal all the suffering, all the anger, all the hatred in our heart. When you forgive someone, whom are you taking care of best? You are taking care of yourself best. Because suddenly, you feel so light because you have put down this negative energy that has been binding us for so long. Getting back to our root, the real natural root of these 4 elements that I mentioned earlier, suddenly you feel, now you can really breathe in and out properly. So when you are angry with someone, always be reminded that as soon as you forgive, you are not giving him, but you are giving yourself that relaxation, that calmness, that happiness. So then suppose if today is my last day, let me in our temple we always say, let us make determination ภาษาไทยใช้คำว่าอธิษฐาน we make a determination that because today might be my last day therefore I will keep my mind my speech and my action wholesome. Wholesome means always doing something good for yourself, something good for others. And when you start doing that, what happens is that you always do the best because this is your last. Imagine today is your last day. So always the last, always the most important thing that you can think of for your husband, for your wife, for your girlfriend, your boyfriend, for your own children. That is something that we could really strengthen ourselves. When you are strengthening yourself, you are actually strengthening everyone around you because you are spreading that energy of being strengthened. A person can be truly strengthened is when you are in touch with your root. In touch with your root meaning I'm working together with my mother, together with my physical root that is going back to the 4 elements, again, the 4 elements, in and out. In Chiang Mai, you have great traditions, particularly the Chinese, who would teach you, who would tell you that when you are in a warm season, you are supposed to be taking this vegetable, this fruit, because this vegetable, this fruit will cool you down. And if it is warm, you take something cool. So this is an art, ancient art that would keep you balanced between the physical body and the universe. It goes like that. So Chiang Mai, again, from the first speaker, Mo was speaking about Chiang Mai as a real place of coming together of nomads, cultural nomads, spiritual nomads also. People always like to come here to practice. So this is also another culmination of various traditions, spiritual traditions as much as cultural traditions. And whatever traditions that you might be coming from, remember, always be reminded to get in touch with your root. And in my own interest that I have now taken the time from being a lay person, now become a monastic, I am also nurturing this root of ordained women. So the root, you may not see the root because the root is deep down, buried under the ground. But when you see the tree is blossoming well, it means the root is well taken care of. So what you see is always above the surface. But what is more important than what is above the surface is that which is underneath, below the surface, meaning the root. So when you talk about empowering of potentiality, I think there is a great deal of energy and great deal of effort that we should be able to look at our root, go back to our root, understand our root, spiritual root, historical. Here in Chiang Mai, you have lots of cultural root that we must understand so that we can pay respect, so that we can live and we can pursue the present situation, the present culture, so that we grow up beautifully, properly. So by saying that, always be reminded that the fact of being today, suppose today is our last day, be connected with our root, be connected with the friend next to you, just like what our friend was doing earlier. Look at each other, look left and right. We tend to take it for granted, the person who is closest to you. So in our temple, we have one particular tradition, I would say tradition. At the end of the year, we always have this asking for forgiveness. And usually couples would come because the closest person is the person you usually hurt the feeling. So they come and they allow us to perform the rituals for them so that the husband would feel at ease to go over and say, honey, I'm sorry. And with this ritual that we provided them, they can bow to each other, forgiving each other for whatever that you might have stepped over the other person. So coming back again to the root, feel your root, get in touch with your root, nurture your root so that we all can empower our potentiality. You have much more than you think. You have much more potentiality than you think. So bring out the best. Thank you.